Good afternoon. We are broadcasting live from the historical October Gallery, located 6353 Green Street in the heart of beautiful Germantown. Listen, big event coming up. Philly Art Expo online. Go to octobergallery.com. The expo begins May 5th, 6th, and 7th. And boy, is it going to be exciting, and boy, do we have a plethora of art for you. This afternoon at the gallery, we want to do a cultural exchange, and we want to talk about the influence of African art on European culture. You know, it's a funny thing about the European. When it comes to anything African, historically, they've tried to lowball it, they tried to denigrate it. They said, oh, African art, oh, it's too primitive. Oh, African art, it's done by street urchins, poor people, without emphasis on the talent that is being used. We have a wonderful piece here from Ghana, and it's something that we specialize in, and it's called silk thread art. The art is actually woven to the board with silk thread, and boy, is it beautiful. We see sisters here dialoguing, talking about the goings on in the village. You know, art has been an essential part of human civilization for thousands of years. And of course, art has had its genesis on the mother continent. It served as a means of expression, communication, and cultural exchange. Along with societal changes, art forms also continue to evolve over time, shaped by diverse influences from around the world. One of the most significant influences on European art over the past century has been from what? African art. African art has long inspired European artists, and influences can be seen in their various art and cultural movements. This afternoon, we will explore the fascinating history of African art and its influence on the European art world. African art has a rich and diverse cultural history and comes in an array of styles with various interpretations. Despite disparities in cultural language and values, African art has related themes centered on humanity, spirituality, and identity. These themes are well reflected in the various styles and mediums used in African art, ranging from wood carvings to masks to textiles to pottery and many others. African art played a really significant role in shaping the art movements of the late 19th century and early 20th century in Europe. The Cubist movement was one that particularly embraced the influence of African art, with its emphasis on geometric shapes and stylistic depictions of the human form. Paul Gauguin and Pablo Picasso, both celebrated Cubist painters, were particularly known for incorporating African art elements in their own works of art. Another European movement that was heavily influenced by African art was Expressionism. In the late 19th century, Expressionism emerged as a cultural revolution characterized by bold and abstract interpretations. Artists who adopted this movement sought to express emotion through vivid brushwork, saturated color, and unconventional forms. As this movement developed, artists such as Ernest Ludwig Kirchner and Emil Noldi became interested in African art and artwork's freedom of expression. The gritty, raw, and often surreal forms of African art proved a source of inspiration that pushed the artist's boundaries to new levels. Moreover, European artists also took inspiration from African art materials such as fabric and culture and sculptures, and these were incorporated into mainstream fashion and other forms of art. A very good example is Yves Saint Laurent, who adopted the color combinations of African fashions, of African fabrics in his fashion designs and became very popular, especially in the 60s. Additionally, Italian sculptor Uberto Bocchini used African art's geometrical shapes in his sculpture, epitomizing the vibrant culture and diversity of African art. In concluding, art has always been the symbol of culture, creativity, and innovation. The cultural exchange between African and European artists has led to the creation of some of the world's most iconic pieces. African art continues to be a source of inspiration to many artists around the world, enriching and diversifying the European art world. The impact of African art on European art is an example of how cultures connect and influence one another. Today, we can continue to appreciate African art's beauty, diversity, creativity, believing that cross-cultural exchange will keep inspiring artists and shaping the art world. During the Philly Art Expo, there are many fine pieces of original African art that will be on display. We ask that you check them out. You know, there's a saying that African art is more valuable than gold. So the expo begins May 5th, 6th, and 7th. Join us online, octobergallery.com. There'll be free giveaways, gift cards, just an array of information and material. So this you don't want to miss. African Art or Philly Art Expo online. African art, more valuable than gold. Peace.